The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, UNU Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to All You Can Eat, the podcast about deliciousness. This is your host, Rob Rosenthal. Very happy to be with you here on what I guess they call Thanksgiving Eve, the 21st day of November, 2018, coming to you live tonight from New York City, New York. And I don't know, I hope that you are as eager for Thanksgiving as I am. It is our national eating holiday. Certainly for those of us that love to eat, it is probably, I know it's my favorite holiday. I am excited about the meal. I'm maybe even equally as excited about the leftovers. You know, sometimes there's just so much eating going on for the event itself that, the leftovers could be a super treat. So let us do this. For those who are like super organized and kind of know what they're doing and what the plans are and who's making what tomorrow, good for you. I still have some ideas here for you that you can take advantage of at the last minute. And for those of us who are last minute, well, I got plenty for you. So you may want to get a pen and paper ready, because I've got a ton of recipes in front of me, some that, can easily be put together at the very last minute, whether you're entertaining or whether you're invited to someone's home and you are tasked with bringing something for the crowd. We can also talk about wine, and I've got a whole bunch of things here to do with the leftovers. So even if you're all set up for tomorrow, there's going to be some sweet potatoes left over and some stuffing and some type of veg and hopefully some kind of turkey, and there's a lot that can be done with that. So let's break into that. And then, I think that in addition to the whole food and the drink and all that kind of stuff, if we have time, I think we even discuss a little bit about gratitude, because let's face it, that is the nature of the holiday. Now, I think that basically, all things about Thanksgiving are generally good when it comes to certainly the eating part. I know that there is a certain amount of stress because, I guess that is part and parcel of getting together with the family and the famed, drunk uncle. And that said, by the way, I am hugely in favor of starting off the festivities with something to drink, something in the alcoholic family. I don't mean alcoholic, but I mean, you know what I mean. Cocktails, wine, spirits, beer, this kind of thing. I think that's important. So this way, and I think that, I just, in general, when you're having people over, it doesn't hurt to, have some music going, or I know a lot of people are going to have the television because there's a football game somewhere, but I like to open things up, with a nice drink. Keep it simple. Simple could be wine, and I think we could talk about what kind of wines make sense for Thanksgiving. We'll get to that in a minute. If you're going to do cocktails, by the way, for a crowd, it's not a terrible idea to do what they call a pitcher drink. I call it my house cocktail. My house cocktail is usually, vodka based, because basically that kind of allows you to flavor it any way you want. Given that it's Thanksgiving, for example, I could take, vodka, put it in a pitcher with ice, maybe add in some, some cranberry juice, because it's, cranberry is appropriate, or some other kind of juice. I actually like, I kind of favor a little bit on the sweet, so maybe a little peach juice, or it could be like a cran grape is interesting. Cran raspberry is interesting on that. And then you lighten it up with maybe a shot of seltzer, club soda, that kind of thing. Anyway, there's something easy about having a pitcher if that's the way you want to go. And if not, obviously there's wine, which I said we'll get to in terms of what are the right wines to serve on Thanksgiving, considering that there's so much different food that has to be considered. The other challenge, by the way, on Thanksgiving, aside from the family, is actually the turkey itself. This should be an occasion to have really good food, but I will tell you, as a guy that has been trained in cooking, it is very challenging to make a perfectly cooked turkey. And the bigger the turkey, the more challenging it is. And the reason for that is because the breast meat, the white meat, cooks more quickly than does the dark. The dark needs more time and higher temperature, and so it's a cook's dilemma, perpetual, to pull out the turkey at the right time so that the dark meat, the thigh and the legs and the wings are cooked enough to make them kind of tender and tasty, and to do that without completely overcooking and drying out the white meat. Now, for me, it's somewhat less of a problem in the sense that I'm not that interested in the white meat. Seriously, keep the breast. Everybody else can have that. I'm here for the dark meat, whether it's coming from the thigh or the leg, or frankly, the good news for me is that nobody else really grabs for the wing. I'm happy eating that turkey wing. If it were up to me, I would be making wings for everybody. Just love that part of the bird. So what's the trick here? If you're the one making a turkey, just to be aware of that the most important tool you could have in your kitchen is the instant read thermometer, because the only surefire way of knowing when something is done is by taking its internal temperature. Where you take the temperature makes a difference. You don't want to take it in the breast. You want to take it actually in the biggest, fattest part of the bird, which is right around somewhere between the thigh and the butt. You know what I mean? And even that incision is not as obvious as you would hope, right? Because sometimes you hit the bone. You don't want to hit the bone. You actually want to measure the temperature of the meat. I don't want to make this complicated for you, but I'm just telling you right now that turkey cooking time is a perpetual challenge, even for the most talented chefs. My suggestion, one of the things you can do is you can cook at a relatively high temperature, and then as you kind of see that the skin on the bird is getting brown to the point where you go, yeah, maybe I don't want it to get more brown than that. You cover that up with aluminum, and that'll somewhat minimize the heat and allow kind of the rest of the darker meat to continue cooking. Temperature-wise, again, even that's not so obvious because, you have to be careful now. I mean, nobody in this country right now can eat romaine lettuce, right? Because that's a bacterial problem. And you have to be careful with poultry. Meaning that, what? The government would tell you that your meat needs to be at least 165 degrees, but I would suggest to you that the dark meat actually wants to cook a little bit higher than that. And I would also tell you that when you're cooking in an oven for that amount of time, 2, 3, 4 hours, 300, 400, 450 degrees, there is a residual cooking time that happens when the turkey is removed, meaning that even if you take a turkey out at 160 degrees, it'll make its way to 165. So everything about cooking a turkey is complicated, and so another reason to ensure that you have adequate alcohol in the house. It may or may not come out perfectly. Do tent the white meat when you can. Do take the temperature so that you know in the thickest part of the turkey you're reaching at least 160 degrees on the dark. Actually, I like dark to go longer. And again, the challenge there is to try to keep the white meat from getting too dried out. And I mean, the only really foolproof way when it comes down to it is to almost cook the parts separately. Now, nobody wants to do that because it makes the presentation of the bird look ugly. But I would say to you that if you could, one of the ways to deal with the dilemma is to, I mean, honestly, is to cook it, the breast until it reaches your 160 point, pull it out, and then literally separate it from the rest of the turkey. Let the breast sit covered with aluminum foil. Let the dark meat cook until it rises another, 5-10 degrees. Sounds complicated, but anyway, good luck on the turkey, and make sure, of course, that you have great gravy, because that way, even if your white meat is dry a little bit, you'll be soaking it in gravy. Now, let's go right into some recipe talk before we get into other discussions, such as the wine, and such as ways to maybe, let's say, minimize your kind of calorie consumption. I mentioned this in the context of the fact that it's such an eating orgy. That Americans average somewhere between, like, I don't know, 3,000, I think, and 4,500 calories for the meal. It's just, it's an enormous amount. It's twice what anybody should eat over the course of an entire day. So later on, with time, we may come back and have some strategies for at least maintaining some semblance of control in that eating orgy. And there are ways to do that. In the meantime, let's go through some recipes, just because, that is really what this is all about. What can we make that is delicious? Now, let us start, for example. I'm pulling this out, by the way, from multiple sources, as I always do. In this case, New York Times cooking section, and they have a little article called "What to Bring to a Thanksgiving Potluck Dinner." So it's about 49 recipes. We're going to take a peek at some of these and see which ones, sound interesting. For example, anything to me that looks complicated or takes more than 45 minutes or so, I'm not even going to bother proposing. Too much time, too much effort, unnecessary. I think the greatest thing that you can do on this occasion is to kind of keep it simple, whether it's the turkey or the sweet potatoes or anything else that it is that you do. So when I see recipes here with over 7 ingredients and over, an hour of time, I'm just going to skip through those. And I'm going to skip through recipes like lemon, garlic, kale salad. This is honestly, as much as I like kale, or don't like kale, or whatever, Thanksgiving, frankly, is not the time for kale. I mean, it's just the way I'm looking at it. Here's another one for you, although so here's one for you that's interesting. Again, these are recipes that you could bring to a potluck, like a broccoli salad with cheddar and warm bacon vinaigrette. See, like, that's appealing to me. And they're saying you could bring it because, again, it doesn't have to be super hot. Let's take a peek at that one. And while I'm opening up the recipe here, I will have you know that if you have any questions whatsoever about Thanksgiving, and you are listening to us live tonight on the 21st day of November, there's a call-in number. Feel free. 800-508-5431. That's 800-508-5431. Ask me any question about Thanksgiving, from preparation to presentation to cocktails. Take a look at this recipe for broccoli salad with cheddar and warm bacon vinaigrette. See, it's like the sound of that, right? That's all good ingredients. What are you going to need? You're going to need a whole bunch of broccoli. And I'm not going to go into detail, frankly, on the actual recipes, because I can refer you to where to find them if you are so inclined. But basically, let's talk about the concept here. You're going to need a bunch of broccoli, right? And you're going to trim it up so that you have a whole, set of little tiny pieces, florets, I guess, And then this recipe also calls for half a cup of pecans. And 4 ounces of bacon that you've diced up, some olive oil, Dijon mustard, and red wine vinegar, because we're going to make a vinaigrette, green onions, otherwise known as scallions, that we're going to be chopping up, and then some, look at you, white cheddar, and some red seedless grapes. It's a 4-step recipe, right? So we're going to, a big old pot of salted water, in goes the broccoli, just quickly, going to give it a little blanch to take away kind of the the hardness, the stiffness. We're going to soften it up a little bit, right? So it's only going to be in the water for a relatively short amount of time, by which I mean, a minute, right? And then you transfer it into some ice water. That'll kill the cooking. It'll keep the color of that broccoli just beautiful. Drain the broccoli, set it aside, and in a large old skillet, right, toast some pecans over medium heat until they smell real good. You should always toast nuts, whether it be in a skillet or in a toaster oven, because that caramelization precisely is what it is, brings out just the flavor, just a beautiful flavor. So you're going to toast some pecans in a large dry skillet. You got nothing in there yet except for some pecans. You only need like a minute or so of that. Take the pecans out and set them aside. Put that skillet back on the heat. Put in some bacon. Now remember, you got 4 strips of bacon that you've cut up. You're going to cook it, stirring until the bacon renders its fat and is crispy. You need 10 minutes for that. That heat goes low, and that's when the mustard and the vinegar go in. You with me? Two teaspoons of Dijon, 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar, because basically you're using the fat from the bacon as the fat in your dressing. Combined with mustard and vinegar, you have a hot bacon vinaigrette. You're going to add green onions or scallions to that. You're going to add the pecans in. You're going to season generously with black pepper. And then all you have to do in a large bowl is take that broccoli, from which you've taken off the hard edge, if you will, and you're going to take those grapes, a cup of seedless grapes. Those grapes go in, cut in half. And then the broccoli and the grapes go in a bowl. You put in the contents of the skillet, which is your bacon and your scallions and your kind of vinaigrette there, and your nuts are in there. And you stir the whole thing together. You season it with some salt, maybe some pepper. And then all of a sudden, at the last minute, in goes 4 ounces of aged white cheddar cheese, crumbled up. And that, my friends, is a lovely, lovely recipe, isn't it? That sounds good to me. Okay, let's see what else is on something that you might be able to bring. Again, we're skipping the kale salads. There is a Brussels sprout salad with apple and walnut. Now, again, that's fine. I think, though, if I'm making Brussels sprouts, I would prefer actually to kind of roast them. And frankly, here's the thing about Brussels sprouts. Like, you cut them, so they're not big and bulbous, but cut them in half or in quarter or, shred them or whatever. And I would roast them. And if you could, you would even roast them in an oven with some duck fat. And then halfway through the cooking, I might put in some garlic. Or even, here's another way to play it, by the way, the Brussels sprouts. They're great with pancetta, the Italian bacon, right? So, Brussels sprouts, pancetta, garlic, and then some toasted walnuts. That would be a lovely side dish as well. What else is on the list here? Sweet potato. Nope, that's an hour and a half. Not playing that. So here's a recipe, what I thought was interesting. It's a 30-minute recipe for cranberry and walnut relish. Now, I'm a fan of cranberry sauce. I'm going to give you some recipes later. Some even come from my very own cookbook. But I want to give you 2 that are showing up in the New York Times, what you could bring to a potluck, even at the last minute kind of Thanksgiving dinner. And here's a recipe, cranberry and walnut relish, right? 2 steps with maybe a couple more ingredients than I would normally like, but check it out. A little bit of rosemary and sage, if you happen to have it around. You're going to need just a touch of butter and some Spanish onion, the little red onion that is. 2 cups of dried cranberries, some apple cider, some orange juice, some cup of sugar, and then you have some 8 ounces of fresh cranberries and some toasted chopped walnuts. All right, maybe that's a little bit ambitious. If you want to see the recipe, New York Times, and the recipe is cranberry and walnut relish. Now, relish generally means, well, you know what? Let's skip what relish means because we're going to actually go to a relish menu. Bear with me right here as we skip right up to something that I think is faster and easier. Here we go. Cranberry orange relish. I love this. This would take you, again, homemade, whether you do it for your own Thanksgiving or you're bringing it to the potluck, cranberry orange relish will take you 5 minutes to make. And I'm a huge fan of cranberry sauce, not the stuff that comes in the can. Fine if you like that, I don't care. But cranberry to me is just too. It's too easy to make with real cranberries rather than use that goo that comes out of a can. I made mine last night, and it's as easy as having cranberries, fresh cranberries, that basically go into a combination of some liquid and some sugar. I mean, literally, it's that easy. The liquid could be water. I didn't use water. I used other liquid. I had some cherry juice in the house. I had a grapefruit. So I used a little cherry juice. I squeezed the grapefruit juice, and that was enough liquid to put in with a big old bag of cranberries and a bunch of sugar. And you boil it for about 7 or 8 minutes, right? And then all of a sudden you can see the cranberries pop, and they have their own, like gelatin. They have their own thickening agent. It's just so great. But the beauty, of course, of cranberry sauce in general is the tartness of it. Now, the reason that's important is because you're having a meal that's generally composed of a lot of really rich stuff, whether it's the gravy or the stuffing or the sweet potatoes that are coming with some kind of like sweet element. There's something fantastic about setting all of that off with the intensity of the cranberry sauce. Just love that. Now, again, you can minimize kind of the sourness. No, sour is not the thing. You can minimize the kind of what is the cranberry thing I'm trying to say? It's when you pucker. You can minimize that obviously by using a little more sugar or a little more honey. I'll give you the exact proportions, but the point is that tart. That's the word I'm looking for. I don't know why words escape. Maybe it's because I'm in the middle of drinking bourbon. But it's the tartness of the cranberries and the cranberry sauce that is really what makes it work. I like it really super tart because, again, I'm having it with turkey and gravy and stuffing and sweet potato and all kinds of rich stuff. But here's a fun thing that you can actually make that you don't even have to cook. That's the difference between kind of cranberry sauce, which is generally going to be cooked the way I describe it to you in some kind of liquid. You could use orange juice is great. You could cook your cranberries in apple cider, which is great. You can add in, as I do, things like some fresh ginger, some dry mustard powder, a little bit of cinnamon. These are all good ingredients. Sometimes I've thrown in dried cranberries into the mix so that I have a little extra texture in there. Love making the cranberry sauce. But cranberry relish, on the other hand, doesn't even get cooked. That's why this recipe in the New York Times for cranberry orange relish is so beautiful to bring to an occasion. Sweet and tart, more refreshing than cooked cranberry sauce, takes as long to make as it does to open a can, but you will need a food processor because a blender will not work for this. That'll just turn everything to juice. This is not about juice. A bag of fresh cranberries, my friends. I love this, right? 4 ingredients. This is my kind of thing. 1 step. With me on this? And you make it the day before, which is, well, that would be today. Because it tastes better when the flavors all combine. A bag of fresh cranberries. 1 whole navel orange, skin included, washed and cut into chunks. 1/2 cup of shelled pecans. 1/2 cup of mild honey. This is beautiful. Those are your 4 ingredients. Bag of cranberries, a navel orange, 1/2 cup of pecans, 1/2 cup of honey. How easy is that? Put all of the ingredients in a food processor and pulse it. Then blend until you have a uniform, very finely chopped mixture with a crunchy texture, and chill it until you're ready to serve. Right? Put that in a beautiful glass bowl and bring it to somebody's house and say, homemade cranberry orange relish. Love that. Love that. Let's see what else is happening here in the recipes to bring to a potluck. Oh, there was something else. Yeah, on the desserty thing. Pumpkin, no. Pumpkin's complicated for me. This is interesting too. salami and scallion biscuits. So I'm not really cooking a whole lot for Thanksgiving. My wife is going to do the whole thing. I cook most of the year. She really likes to be the one to handle the Thanksgiving. But people had asked for my pink peppercorn biscuits. And it may be the only time of the year that there's going to be biscuits at one of our meals. I learned to make biscuits in French cooking school, and I learned a method that was easy. I'm going to actually, let's do mine first. It comes from my cookbook, which I am now opening in front of me. I see a nice picture of my biscuits. Page 190 for those following along. The cookbook is called Short Order Dad, One Guy's Guide to Making Food Fun and Hassle-Free. And here it is, pink peppercorn biscuits. I love these little treats because they're flaky, fabulous, and fuss-free, like a few of my friends, too few. Plus, those peppercorn pieces look really cool, and they have only the slightest bit of peppery bite, because the truth of the matter is that pink peppercorns are not really peppers. They're kind of a form of fruit, and they're easy to get. I mean, in most supermarkets, you're going to find pink peppercorns. It's a super simple dough that you form by hand. That's nice. We don't need complicated cookware, pie tins, muffin tins, none of that stuff. So you make an easy dough. I'm going to tell you how to do that. You cut your dough into little squares. You bake it until it's puffy and lightly brown. And you show everybody that you can make biscuits like Grandma did. Just whatever you do, don't wear her apron. Okay, you ready for the ingredients? Here you go, my friends. 2 cups of cake flour. The brand actually is called Presto. It's really easy. I think Presto might even have some baking powder built into it, but the recipe calls for 2 cups of cake flour and a tablespoon only of baking powder. You need a teaspoon of salt, a tablespoon or maybe some more of the pink peppercorns that you have lightly crushed, 1 cup of heavy cream, and 1/2 cup of melted butter. Are you ready for me? The oven goes to 425. You sift the dry ingredients into a bowl, add the peppercorns, and mix it together. The dry ingredients being nothing more than salt, a little baking powder, and your cake flour. Then you incorporate the cream slowly, stirring to make the dough. You might not need all the cream, but enough to form it into a ball. Knead the dough for 1 whole minute. I mean, this is easy. With a little dough at a time, pat into 1/2 inch thick squares. If you want neat, cut them with a knife. If not, make those little kind of 1/2 inch thick squares with your own 2 little hands. Dip this little square of dough into melted butter. Place them an inch or so apart on a baking sheet and cook in there for about 12 minutes until they're golden in color, and serve them warm. I mean, and they're fantastic. That's the thing. They look good. They're flaky. They got those pink peppercorns in it, which gives it just a little bit of interest. And they're just like a super treat to have with a meal like this, especially if you're opening up with something, you know, kind of like a soup or a salad. It's just lovely to have a little biscuit on the side. Now, the reason I went into the whole biscuit thing here is because in looking at some of the things that you might be able to bring to a potluck, I see in the New York Times article this right here, which I thought was interesting. It is salami and scallion biscuits. Let's just see. Rich, savory biscuits, better than the traditional ham and cheese variety, and these can be made in 45 minutes. Let us see. 2 cups of all-purpose flour in this case. A tablespoon of baking powder, 2 teaspoons of sugar, a teaspoon of salt, 3 tablespoons of unsalted butter that's cubed and chilled, plus, again, some softened butter for brushing. And then you need a 1/4 cup of chopped salami, which could be like a sopressata, 2 tablespoons of chopped up scallions, and 3/4 cup of heavy cream. So the idea is the same, basically, in the sense that you're going to have some flour and baking powder, you're going to have some salt and sugar, there's going to be some cream to form the dough. And the other, ingredients are going to be your butter and salami and scallion. So if you're interested in this, check it out on New York Times, Melissa Clark. It is called Salami and Scallion Biscuits. And wouldn't it be nice to have some biscuits on Thanksgiving? Biscuits, by the way, are not one of the things you want left over, in my opinion. Biscuits, you kind of want warm out of the oven. They don't age well. Is there anything else on this here? Potatoes, no. Salad, we're avoiding. Here's a 30-minute recipe that just sounds tasty to me. Roasted cauliflower with feta, almonds, and olives. I'm not even going to look at the recipe. I will just say that, if you have feta cheese and you have almonds, which of course you now know that you're going to toast, and you have olives, and you roast cauliflower, and you toss that all together with some oil and some vinegar, you got a lovely dish. All right, so let's skip over. Let's leave this behind. What to bring to a Thanksgiving potluck. And let us take a look instead, again, New York Times, going heavy on that today, but that's because they're giving me a lot of ammunition. Here's an article entitled A Vegetarian Thanksgiving. There's 117 vegetarian recipes. I need turkey. Some people are going to have ham. But that said, part of the excitement for a whole lot of people is having great vegetables. Let's skim through some of these and see what sounds good. Olive oil mashed potatoes, great, 20 minutes. Pecan pie truffles. Pecan pie truffles. The reason that we're going to take a look at pecan pie truffles is because truffles sound complicated, and they turn out to be relatively easy. Let's take a peek together at pecan pie truffles and see what is involved here. Vegetarian, okay. Stay with me here. You're going to need toasted, 2.5 cups of toasted pecans, graham cracker, crumbs, dark sugar, salt, maple syrup, bourbon, 1/4 cup of bourbon, some vanilla, and 7 ounces of dark chocolate. Let's take a quick peek at this. Stir together pecans, graham cracker, crumbs, brown sugar, and salt. Add maple syrup, bourbon, and vanilla. Use your hands to make sure the mixture becomes fully incorporated. Form the mixture into walnut-sized balls, place them on a cookie sheet, and freeze them for 2 hours. That's not complicated right there. It just isn't. Now, what about the chocolate? Where does that come in? Step 3, and the final step, on the top of a double boil, you know what that is, right? Or in a medium stainless steel bowl set over a pot of gently simmering water. Melt the chocolate. And I like dark, and that's what the recipe calls for. And then you line a baking sheet with parchment paper, and you're only really doing that because that's where your final kind of chocolate-covered, balls are going. And dip the frozen balls into the melted chocolate. Place them on the prepared baking sheet. Let them sit for 15 or 20 minutes until they're firm. So you have there basically a pecan pie truffle. If you're interested, pecan pie truffles, New York Times. Also, recipe, by the way, even easier than that in my book. No kidding. I do a recipe for truffles. I'm not going to take the time to look it up, but my recollection is you're making a ganache. A ganache requires simply chocolate and cream. It comes together in a way that you can form into balls. And you have chocolate truffles. And then you can kind of coat them with either cocoa, for example, or with powdered sugar, or with chopped up, nuts, pistachios. So truffles are also, by the way, a great thing to bring to somebody else's place because they're easy. Again, I'm telling you 2 ingredients. And my favorite 2-ingredient thing in the world is to melt chocolate and to dip things in it and bring that. Seriously. Double boiler simply means that you're boiling some water, but you put another pot or like a stainless steel bowl on top of it so that it gets real warm. You melt your chocolate. I prefer dark, but you can use any kind. And once it's all melty, I will confess to those who understand chocolate that it should be what they call tempered, which means that it works best at a very specific temperature. I don't follow the rule. I just don't. It's not important enough. because I can take a strawberry, as long as it's super dry. Do not allow one iota of moisture on your strawberry, but I can take a strawberry, dip it into melted chocolate, and leave it on that piece of parchment or wax paper until it hardens. And let me tell you something, it's a beautiful gift. Chocolate-covered strawberries, chocolate-covered whatever. Do it with a pretzel, do it with a banana. I make bark. I make it all the time. You go over to your Trader Joe's, you buy a 2-pound block of chocolate, you melt the heck out of it, and you throw in to that melty mix dried fruit. It could be golden raisins, it could be cherries, it could be strawberries, it could be dried blueberries, whatever it is. You throw in things like nuts, as long as they're toasted. Like I said, it could be pistachio, it could be almonds, it could be pecans, whatever it is that you want. You stir that noise up, and then you pour it out onto your parchment or your wax paper. You stick it in the fridge until it hardens, and you're going to bring somebody, basically, a really super fabulous, easy to make, homemade, by you dessert. What's better than that? With the ingredients that you so choose. 117 vegetarian recipes. Let's see what else they have here that was interesting. Brussels sprouts with walnuts and pomegranate. Sure. Pecan pie truffles we talked about. There's something else that looked good on here. Roasted carrots. No, wasn't that. Sweet potato and Gruyere gratin. Well, it takes too much time. We don't have the time. Sorry. Roasted Brussels sprouts with garlic. We already talked about that. My suggestion to you is only to make it with duck fat, which is great. Roasted vegetables, everybody is doing. There's 1,000 recipes for that. I just think it's a big move. Excuse me. Sweet potatoes with bourbon and brown sugar. Not going to argue with that, but in this case, I got to be honest with you. She set aside an awful long time. Let's see why. Why is that an hour and a quarter? It's like anything that has bourbon in it, which reminds me I should have a sip of this before the ice completely melts. Sweet potatoes with bourbon and brown sugar. Oh, cloves, nutmeg, and black pepper. Sure. Let's see what she's got. All right, here you go. You got 3.5 pounds of sweet potatoes, pricked with a fork. 10 to 12 potatoes, 6 tablespoons unsalted butter, 3 to 4 tablespoons dark brown sugar, 1.5 tablespoons bourbon or orange juice, boo, lemon zest, kosher salt, freshly grated nutmeg, black pepper, and a pinch of ground cloves. All right, look, it's 2 steps. Heat the oven 350, wrap the potatoes in foil, place them on a baking sheet. Oh, that's why this takes so long, because they need an hour to cook, and then some time to cool. And then remove the foil, peel off the skin, add the sweet potatoes to a food processor. In goes. You ready? Butter, 6 tablespoons. Brown sugar, 3 to 4 tablespoons. Bourbon, 1.5 tablespoons. Lemon zest, 3/4 of a teaspoon. That's probably the zest that you get from 1 lemon. Salt, 3/4 of a teaspoon. Nutmeg, half a teaspoon. Pepper, 1/4 of a teaspoon. And cloves, a pinch. Puree until smooth. Or, for a chunkier texture, mash everything by hand. Taste, add salt, sugar, or both. If you need, serve it while it's warm. Not going to argue with that. I like sweet potatoes, and they are a superfood. I mean, obviously, they're not as much of a superfood when you add in 6 tablespoons of butter, but the point is, sweet potatoes are super good for you. Brussels sprouts, roasted root vegetables with polenta, roasted blah blah blah, roasted Brussels sprouts all over, celery root, mushroom, walnut salad, sweet potato souffle, cabbage, wild rice, beets, winter squash, cornbread, wild rice, cranberry orange lemon we talked about. And let's see, there's a lot of recipes, man. Turnips, parsnips, carrots, mushroom, sweet potatoes, porcini, Armenian rice, vegan mac and cheese. 30 minutes to vegan mac and cheese. Interested? Let's see what else there is. Let's say chickpeas, no. Stuffed squash, no. Cranberry pomegranate sauce, No. Pomegranate salad, no. Vegan, no. Mushroom, chickpeas. Cauliflower gratin with leeks and white cheddar. Well, there you go. Oh, two things. Spiced roasted cauliflower with feta and garlic. I think we talked about something close to that before, but let's take a look at something more ambitious. Cauliflower gratin with leeks and white cheddar. Sort of Cheetah's gratin. Cauliflower with leeks and cream. Doesn't require blanching or bechamel. One small-ish head of cauliflower. Olive oil, just for drizzling. A small leek, white and green part only, very thinly sliced. Salt and pepper, 3/4 cup of heavy cream, and 6 ounces of sharp white cheddar. Okay, this is great. This is great, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish ingredients. 425 oven. Slice the cauliflower head lengthwise into 1/2 inch thick slices. Drizzle some oil into the bottom of a 2-quart baking dish. Oval, square, or rectangular dish will all work. Layer about 1/3 of the cauliflower along the bottom and 1/3 of the leeks. Season with salt and pepper. Repeat until all the cauliflower and leeks are used. Don't worry about perfect layering. Season with salt and pepper. Drizzle cream over. Scatter cheese on top. Season with salt and pepper. Lightly cover with foil. Put it in the oven. Bake it until the cauliflower is nearly tender, 10 to 15 minutes. Remove the foil and continue to bake until the cream is thickened and reduced nearly completely, and the top is golden brown and crisp. Now that sounds, remove from the heat and let it cool before eating. I'll tell you something, man. That'd be delicious. Delicious. 4 or 5 ingredients, right? You're basically cooking cauliflower in a 425 oven with some leek, salt, pepper, some heavy cream, and some cheese, and I'm in. All right, let's see what else we got here. Thanksgiving leftovers. Let's get right to the leftovers. we're only going to have time for a couple so that we still have time to talk about wine and thankfulness. Okay, day after Thanksgiving. Let's skip to some of the good stuff. Skip that. Here's one I thought was interesting. Thanksgiving leftover grilled cheese. Now, I think the only reason I'm mentioning grilled cheese is because, you take your turkey and your leftover turkey and some of your favorite cheese and a nice piece of bread and put it on the grill. But I'm only mentioning this in the context of the George Foreman grill. I got one of these. I don't even know why. It was probably a mistake like 10 years ago. I never used it for what the grill was supposed to be used for, but have always used it to make panini. Because panini is exciting. Crispy bread just makes the sandwich better. So anyway, I mentioned that because George Foreman has come out with a panini grill. Not that you need it, and if you just have the regular George Foreman, you do what I do. Get 2 pieces of your favorite bread, throw on your leftover turkey, put some cheese in there, and I don't mind, put in a sweet potato, throw in some of your leftover veg, and press the heck out of that. Now, another way to play leftover turkey. I know I'm going to have some because I bought this most enormous turkey. I don't even know what I was thinking. I know that there's a ratio. I just wanted a big turkey. There will be turkey left over for me. And one of the things that you can do with leftover turkey is you can make roast turkey and black bean quesadillas. Quesadillas turn out to be fantastic way to use your leftovers, right? Because you all you need those tortillas, right? And you're going to stuff it with things like turkey and grated cheese, and in this case, black beans. Maybe you throw in some pickled jalapenos. Maybe you put in some cilantro leaves. And again, this thing gets kind of toasted on both sides, and you cut it up, and this is beautiful, right? And you can even dip it, into, your cranberry sauce or your cranberry chutney. Like that, I could have that now and be excited. Here's a recipe for cheese-free sweet potato quesadillas. So here's a recipe that's basically saying, take your turkey, take whatever other stuff, take your sweet potato, essentially, and use that as the primary filling inside a quesadilla. Turkey and Brussels sprout quesadilla. So there you go. A lot of easy ways. Oh, and here's another Mexican way to play this thing. 15-minute turkey enchiladas. Right? Super easy. You're rolling up some floured tortillas that have turkey in them, and you use basically like a store-bought mole. You bake them in a pan. You serve them with salsa. Here's one for you. I like this one. Leftover turkey carnitas. Let's take a look at the recipe. right? Because I'm just assuming there's going to be leftover turkey, right? Leftover turkey carnitas. Let's see, 20 minutes, an hour. Ingredients, I need 1 orange. Sour. 1 orange, preferably sour, per pound of leftover turkey meat. 1 medium onion, easy. 2 bay leaves, fine. 2 tablespoons of oil or chicken fat or turkey fat or duck fat. Oh, that's it. Combine the turkey with your orange, preferably sour orange, and that's not so easy to get your hands on unless you live near like a Spanish market. You're going to put in some onion and a bay leaf in a pot. Add enough water to cover halfway, bring it to a boil, reduce to a bare simmer, and cook until the turkey falls off the bone, 45 minutes to an hour. That's weird, right? Because the turkey was already left over, but okay, fine. Discard the orange, the onion, the bay leaves, and drain the turkey. Shred the turkey, discard the bones. Heat oil or fat in cast iron or non-stick skillet over medium heat until it's shimmering. Add turkey and spread it to an even layer. Cook without moving until the meat is well browned and crisp on the bottom. This will take you 5 minutes. Stir turkey to incorporate the crisp bits and introduce new soft bits to the bottom. Continue until the turkey is as crisp as you like it. Season it with salt. Turkey carnitas can be used in place of pork carnitas in any recipe. Try them in a taco with onion, cilantro, and lime juice on top of nachos or in a burrito or quesadilla. All right, so that's another way to play turkey. Let's see. Then there's soups and stews. Let's see if any of this looks good. Turkey tortilla soup. You know, I will say that, there's also a turkey and andouille gumbo with leftover turkey and a leftover turkey chili verde. Let's take a peek at some of those, but I will make the point about this. Long before people have left my house, the carcass of that big old turkey that I had, and that we all just were sucking on for the last couple of hours, is already in a giant pot with nothing more than some carrot, some onion, some celery, and hopefully some leftover thyme. And it's filled with just enough water to kind of cover the bones. And I boil it up, and I'm making turkey stock like the very same night. And that turkey stock can be used either in any place, any recipe that you would use chicken stock. What I use it for, however, is to make turkey soup the next day with that leftover turkey. So it's easy, right? Again, take your turkey. You need carrot, celery, and onion, and frankly, while that can all go in as it is into a big old stock pot, you can also roast it first if you want. It'll give you a richer flavor. If you roast your bones and your carrot, your celery, and your onion until you see some color on them, then put them into a pot and add water. You can make kind of a rich turkey stock. Nothing wrong with that, and it will make for some great soup the following day. Let's see, what looks good? Do you have a slow cooker? Because this is only interesting if you have a slow cooker. All of these. I mean, most of these. These all require kind of a slow I'll give you one. Turkey chili verde or turkey and andouille gumbo. Let's take a peek at that, and let's just see what's required. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, so a slow cooker, turkey, leftover turkey and andouille gumbo. What do you need to make this happen? And the answer is way too many ingredients. Okay, so let's just skip over that. What about for the chili verde recipe? No. Turkey, ramen, turkey. Oh, Taiwanese turkey rice. Hey, I could do that. Okay, how do you make that? You go that, and all you really need, okay, salt and pepper, easy. Oil, no problem. Shallots, water, sugar, soy, Sichuan peppercorns, cilantro, and steamed rice. All right, I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this. If you're interested in this recipe, you can find it on Serious Eats. And the name of these recipes this is Taiwanese turkey rice made with leftovers. But this whole section here on Serious Eats, if you're interested in what to do with leftovers, because you just can't get enough, go to SeriousEats.com. And what you're looking here is 23 Thanksgiving leftovers recipes. Don't stop till you get enough. Finally, there was one other recipe in Munchies. Oh yeah, this is the one I was looking for before. Munchies. This section on Munchies is called "Piss Off Your Conservative Uncle with This Vegan Thanksgiving Dinner." We're not going to go through anything except for just one, the maple roasted root vegetables. And I'm going to tell you why. Because why should pancakes have all the fun with maple syrup? And it just looks great. And it's easy, right? Because you're going to get a whole bunch of root vegetables. Now, that can be beets, and particularly golden beets are good. Large carrots that you're going to peel and cut into rounds. Parsnips that you peel and core and cut into pieces. Sweet potatoes that you peel and you half and you slice into 1 to 2 inch pieces. Radishes that you trim off the greens and you half. One large rutabaga. Rutabaga. Okay, cut that into pieces. And then you need some rosemary and some maple syrup and some oil and salt and pepper, right? So heat the oven to 400, line 2 rim baking sheets with parchment paper. Combine beets, carrots, parsnips, sweet potatoes, radishes, rutabaga, and some rosemary sprigs in a large bowl. Whisk together the chopped rosemary with your maple syrup, olive oil, salt, and pepper. Right? This is easy stuff. Drizzle it over your veg. Toss everything to coat. Put it on till you divide it between your 2 baking sheets on an even layer. And put those vegetables in an oven there until they're tender for 45 or 50 minutes. Right? And an hour later, you have maple roasted root vegetables, which I got to be honest with you, cannot be bad. All right. 2 more pieces that I had promised. What are we going to do about wine? Even if you left it for the last minute, I don't know. Are liquor stores open tomorrow? I know that vary. I hope so. I'm sure. Thanksgiving's not the place to match specific wines to particular dishes. This is coming from the New York Times. Eric Asimov, he's the wine specialist. If you would want to add rosés or sparkling, go ahead and do that, but not at the expense of the reds or whites. And what he's saying basically is that go big, literally he says like a bottle a person, and reds and whites, and go with the crowd pleasers. For example, easygoing and refreshing is your Beaujolais and your Sauvignon Blanc, and I have no problem with either one of those, right? So if you see a Louis Jadot or a Joseph Drouin, you have no problem getting their Beaujolais or Beaujolais Village will run you about $15 a bottle, and the same thing holds true for your Sauvignon Blanc, which generally comes out of the Loire Valley of France. If you can get your hands on a nice Sancerre, it may cost you $20, but I love a Sancerre on the whites. Sauvignon Blanc, New Zealand does a good job with those. When it comes to American wines, American wines, Willamette Valley in Oregon, I think it's hard to get a Pinot there that's less than a Pinot Noir that's less than $20. Chardonnay, people, I don't know, like to be kind of elitist, but there's nothing wrong with a decent, $15 Chardonnay for Thanksgiving. And Zinfandel, see, I happen to like the bigness of a Zinfandel. He recommends kind of against it because it's like too much. The alcohol content on that can go a little high, like up to 15%. Frankly, I think the move here is right. What I did was I bought essentially 4 whites and 8 reds, and kind of kept them easy drinking. And some of them are going to be Beaujolais, and in my case, Pinot Gris, which I think goes really well with food. And I don't even remember what the other red I got is. Make it easy on the wine. People will basically drink anything and kind of don't know a ton better. And frankly, with all that good food, any decent wine should make people happy. Finally, tonight, I will 2 things. One is the calorie situation. I think I mentioned that the studies show that we are eating somewhere between 3,000 and 4,500 calories for this meal, this one meal, when in fact 2,000 is about average what most people should be taking in. So we're taking in somewhere between 50 and 150% more than we should be eating. If you want to keep it light, when I say light, I'll give you a 1,700 calorie meal, a little piece of cornbread, 1 glass of red wine is going to be 125 calories. A small portion of mashed potatoes, candied sweet potatoes, is also 187 calories. A very small portion of your green bean casserole. Keep it really a half a cup of stuffing. That's 200 calories right there. Cranberry sauce is 100 for literally for a quarter of a cup of this stuff. White meat turkey, because that's going to be the least calories. 3.5 ounces only. I probably eat 4 times that. A little bit of gravy. And a little piece of pumpkin pie, and you're still at 1,800 calories. You want to save yourself some calories. Make a little fruit thing for yourself. Nectarine, a pear, some pecans, and dates with a dash of cinnamon. Man, you'll save a ton of calories. Finally, my friends, with the small time that we have left, be grateful for anything that makes you happy, whether it's health, or whether it's getting together with people that you love, or whether it's enjoying a meal, or if it's as simple as, you woke up and you're here, and you get to celebrate yet another day of Thanksgiving. With that, if I can be helpful, feel free to reach out to me. Short Order Dad, you can find me anywhere, whether it be Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, and if you need recipes, especially as we move into the holiday season, Short Order Dad, one of the best guides making food fun and hassle-free, is available for you on Amazon. With that, have a great Thanksgiving, and remember, my friends, life is short. Never waste a meal.